Some secrets you keep to protect people. Some you keep to protect yourself. But the most dangerous ones? You keep those to find out who people really are. For 3 years, I let my son-in-law Alex think I was just his wife's quiet, unassuming father, a retired old man living a simple life in a modest house. If you enjoy stories like this, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel to see how it all unfolds. He never guessed that the company where he was the celebrated CEO, the empire he was so proud of leading, was actually mine. He thought he was at the top of the food chain, but he never bothered to ask who built the jungle. That mistake, that arrogant oversight, was about to cost him everything. It all came to a head on a Friday night at a dinner that was supposed to be a polite family get-together, but turned into a declaration of war. My daughter Sarah married a man who was, by all accounts, a success. Alex was the CEO of Omnicorp, a rising star in the tech world. He was handsome, charismatic, ambitious, all the things you'd want on paper. He was also the son of Charles and Eleanor Vance, a couple who measured a person's worth by the size of their stock portfolio. From the moment I met them, I was just a piece of furniture in their world, old, worn out, and easily ignored. They didn't see me as Sarah's father. They saw me as a social liability. A poor old man who drove a 15-year-old truck and lived in a house that could probably fit inside their guest wing. They were about to learn that some old furniture is priceless. Let me back up a bit. My name is Mark. 35 years ago, I started Omnicorp in my garage with nothing but an idea and a second mortgage. My late wife, Helen, was the only one who believed in me back then. We built that company from the ground up, not just with code, but with a simple philosophy: integrity over everything. Our employees were like family because in the beginning they were pretty much all we had. We survived recessions, hostile takeover attempts, and betrayals that would make most people give up. When Helen passed away, the light just went out of my world. The corner office felt empty. The billions in the bank were just numbers on a screen. The only thing that mattered anymore was our daughter, Sarah. Helen and I had always agreed we wouldn't raise a kid defined by our money. We wanted her to be kind, resilient, and find her own path. So I stepped back from Omnicorp. I didn't sell it, I just faded into the background. I installed a board I trusted and let them run the show, becoming the silent majority shareholder, a ghost in the machine I created. I moved back into the small house Helen and I first bought. I lived simply, not because I had to, but because it was the only way I felt connected to the man I was before the money. When Sarah brought Alex home, I really wanted to like him. For her sake, I did. He was sharp, and he talked about the future of tech with a passion that reminded me of myself at his age. Sarah was head over heels, convinced she'd found a true partner. She knew I owned Omnicorp, of course. We never kept that from her. She also respected my wish to stay anonymous, to see if people could see me for me. She thought it was a little eccentric, but she went along with it, believing Alex loved her for who she was, not what she had. In a strange twist of fate, the board ended up headhunting Alex. They had no idea he was dating my daughter. When they proposed making him CEO, I saw a unique opportunity. A test, you could say. I could watch him up close and see the man he was when he thought no one important was looking. I agreed to his appointment and remained Mark, the retired father-in-law who gardened too much. For the first year, Alex was brilliant. He grew the company 15% and inspired his teams. He was respectful, calling on Sundays to check in, even bringing me leftovers from fancy restaurants. I started to think this whole test was silly. I thought, this is a good man. Sarah chose well. But then his parents' influence started to creep in. Charles and Eleanor were old money, and they saw their son's marriage to Sarah as a project. A girl from a humble background who needed to be polished. and they saw me as a stain on their perfect family picture. Their condescension was subtle at first, a patronizing smile here, a comment about how quaint my house was there. I ignored it for Sarah. But Alex, instead of defending me, started to mirror them. The calls stopped. Our conversations got strained. He'd talk down to me about the tech industry, explaining basic concepts as if I were a child, forgetting I'd built the world he was now living in. He was becoming his parents. The breaking point came with a phone call. It was Sarah, but her voice was tight. "Dad, Alex and his parents want to have a family dinner on Friday at their club. They'd love for you to come." I knew exactly what this was. It wasn't an invitation. It was a summons. That club was a place built to keep people like me out. "Of course, sweetheart," I said, keeping my voice light. "Wouldn't miss it." When I hung up, a cold feeling washed over me. This wasn't a family dinner. This was a performance. Friday night, I put on my best suit. A simple, dark wool number, probably older than Alex himself. I drove my old truck to the country club. The valet looked at my truck with a mix of pity and disgust before parking it as far away from the gleaming luxury cars as possible. The Vances had a private table overlooking the golf course. Charles stood and shook my hand with a grip meant to show dominance. Eleanor offered a cheek for a kiss that never landed. Alex just looked uncomfortable. And Sarah, my poor daughter, was trying her best to hold a smile. The dinner was a master class in passive aggression. "Mark, do you play golf?" Charles asked, already knowing the answer. "Not much these days," I said. "A shame. It's where the real business of the world gets done. But I suppose you wouldn't know about that." Eleanor chimed in, pointing to the flowers. "These are from a wonderful shop in the city. Terribly expensive. You probably find it more practical to just grow your own, don't you?" she said, a jab at my gardening. Alex said nothing. He just stared into his wineglass, avoiding my eyes. He was a coward. He was letting them treat his wife's father like garbage to score points with his parents. Any respect I had left for him vanished in that moment. I just ate my food, listened, and waited. I knew people like the Vances don't stage a show like this without a grand finale. As the waiter cleared the dessert plates, Charles leaned forward. He put on a somber, fatherly tone that made my skin crawl. "Mark," he began, "Eleanor and I, and Alex, we've been talking, and we're concerned." I raised an eyebrow. "Concerned about what, Charles?" "About your situation and Sarah's future," he said. "We know you've lived a modest life, and that's admirable. But Sarah is a Vance now. She has a standard of living to maintain." Alex finally spoke up, his voice low. "Dad, what they're trying to say is, we want to help." Eleanor reached into her handbag and pulled out a crisp, white envelope. She slid it across the table. It landed next to my water glass with a soft thud that felt like a slap. "What is this?" I asked, my voice dangerously quiet. "It's a cashier's check," Charles said, puffing out his chest. $250,000, a gift. I stared at the envelope. They weren't offering a gift. They were trying to pay me off, to erase me from my own daughter's life so I wouldn't tarnish their brand. Eleanor leaned in. "We want you to take it and simplify your life. Perhaps a nice retirement community, somewhere warmer, out of state. It would be less confusing for our social circle and allow Sarah to fully integrate into the family without distractions." I looked at Sarah. Her face was pale, her eyes wide with horror. She started to say, "Mom, Dad, you can't." But Alex cut her off. "Sarah, just listen. It makes sense. It's for the best." And that was it. The test was over. Alex hadn't just failed, he was a co-conspirator. The man I'd entrusted with my company, the man my daughter loved, was willing to sell me out for social status. I let the silence hang in the air. I looked from Charles's smug face to Eleanor's expectant one, and finally to Alex, who suddenly looked like a man realizing he'd just walked off a cliff. Slowly, I picked up the envelope. I held it between my thumb and forefinger and met Charles's gaze. $250,000, I said quietly. "It's a generous offer, Charles." He smiled, thinking he'd won. "We thought you'd see it that way." "I'm just a little confused," I continued, tapping the envelope on the table. "Is this coming from your personal account, or should I consider this a corporate expense?" Charles frowned. "What are you talking about? It's our money." "Is it?" I leaned forward, "because from where I'm sitting, your entire lifestyle has been funded by dividends from the company your son runs, a company you seem to know very little about." Alex's face went white. "What does that have to do with anything?" I turned to him. "Alex, how do you think you got your job as CEO?" He straightened up, that CEO reflex kicking in. "I was headhunted. The board selected me based on merit." "That's true," I nodded. "You are talented. I want you to hold on to that part, because it's the only true thing you have left." I paused. "But let me fill in a few blanks. The search firm that headhunted you? I own a controlling interest. The board that interviewed you? I appointed half of them. And the final vote to make you CEO? It was unanimous because I gave the final approval." I looked at the three of them, their arrogant postures crumbling. Charles's mouth was hanging open. I placed my hands flat on the table. "My name is Mark Thorne. 35 years ago, I founded Omnicorp in a garage. I designed its initial architecture, I secured its first patents, and I am and have always been its majority shareholder." The silence that followed was absolute. It was the sound of three worlds collapsing at once. Sarah, who had been watching with a mix of dread and vindication, put her hand on my arm. I looked directly at Alex. "You have been the CEO of my company. You live in a house your salary from my company pays for. And you just sat here and let your parents offer me what amounts to less than your last quarterly bonus to disappear so I don't embarrass you." I stood up. "You were worried about your reputation," I said to Charles and Eleanor. "You should be. As of this moment, your access to the corporate accounts Alex so generously gave you is revoked. Enjoy flying commercial." Then I turned back to Alex. He looked broken. "Alex," I said, my voice no longer angry, just tired. "You're a brilliant executive, but you're a weak man with no integrity. You failed my daughter, and you failed my company." I slid the envelope back across the table. "You're going to need this. As of Monday morning, you are terminated, effective immediately. Security will see you out." I turned to my daughter. "Sarah, let's go home." She stood up, took my hand, and we walked out of that club without looking back. In the weeks that followed, the fallout was immense. Alex tried to fight his termination, but had no grounds. His parents became social outcasts. But the most important thing was what happened with Sarah. She and Alex separated. She was heartbroken, not over the money, but because the man she loved turned out to be a total stranger. She came to me one evening while I was tending my roses. "I'm so sorry, Dad," she said, tears in her eyes. "I never should have let it go on so long." I pulled her into a hug. This isn't your fault. You saw the good in him and wanted to believe in it. That's a virtue, not a flaw. I never set out to test him. I just wanted to live a quiet life and see if my daughter's husband could love her father for who he was, not what he had. He couldn't. He and his family were blinded by wealth and status, and in the end, it's the very thing that destroyed them. I didn't get any joy from firing Alex. I just felt a profound sadness that I'd built an empire but almost lost my family. In the end, though, I reclaimed my dignity and got my daughter back. And that's a fortune no amount of money can ever buy. Have you ever felt like you had to hide a part of yourself to see someone's true colors? Let us know your story in the comments. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this story, please make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel for more.